Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wild Wing Cafe out by the University, the Alan Major Show. Phone number 704-358-8768, 704-358-8768. And happy to have all you guys joining us here from the 49erfanatics.com broadcast center inside of Wild Wing Cafe. And alongside Niners head coach Alan Major, I'm Matt Swarad. Again, our phone number is 704-358-8768. We'll take some email questions also coming up a little bit later on. And if you'd like to send us a question for next week's show, you can certainly do that. But all the questions we have for tonight are already here with us. But the email address is major49ershow@yahoo.com. That's major49ershow@yahoo.com. Niners' next game's coming up on Saturday afternoon. We'll go to Rhode Island tomorrow to take on the URI Rams at 2 o'clock on Saturday. That's also a Masson TV game and a Masson viewing party right here at Wild Wing Cafe at 2 o'clock this coming Saturday. So make your plans to join all your fellow Niner fans here at Wild Wing Cafe to watch that game on Saturday. Well, Coach, it's been a little bit of a break for you. Every season in conference time, there's a week during conference play where you don't have to play in the middle of the week. You got some practice time, and after 3 straight home games, I know you guys are ready to get back to the practice floor, and it gave you a week to really kind of get back to the basics a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost Monday was almost like October 15th in a way. Just trying to get back to the basics, especially getting an edge back on defense. Competing hard as we're capable of competing, and unfortunately hit the hangover a little bit last Saturday, and that's growing up as a team and just developing basketball maturity. Not bad immaturity, but basketball maturity where you can, consistently sustain that level of effort night in and night out. And, we've obviously proven that we can, play against, teams that maybe we're the underdog. But, the majority of this league, if you look at some of the scoring margins, I mean, even just looking at Rhode Island stats right now, a lot of teams, scoring points, per game and points allowed, it's very even or close. And so it's just a fine line conference. And so, our next step of growth, again, is when those games come down to, a handful of plays here or there, a lot of times it's been effort. It's not so much maybe we've been outplayed in terms of people being better, but it's just little hustle things here and there and those fine line things. And so, but some of that's basketball maturity, and that's where we got to continue to grow.
It's not so much overlooking an opponent. It's just you're right, coming ready to play for 40 minutes, and it's easier to really to think that's hard to imagine, but it happens, doesn't it?
Right. No, I mean, the Los Angeles Lakers this year, I think, hit a stretch where they lost 8 of 10, and people were up in arms. And how can the world champs possibly lose 8 out of 10 games? But it's a phenomenon in sports that's very difficult to overcome. I mean, I think watching Ohio State this year, what's been impressive is that you're everybody's Super Bowl game. When you're 20, all of a sudden you're 12-0, then you're 15-0, then you're 18-0, and people literally play above themselves every game against those guys. And so that's a unique deal. I mean, that's why only one time in history as a team ran the table and won the national championship. So how that translates back to us is that in looking at our I won't say youth, but some of it's inexperience. Even though we have some older guys, JB, in a sense, is probably still a sophomore in terms of the court, even though he's a junior in class. His experience basketball-wise is younger than that. So a lot of guys just haven't had the maybe the time and experience to go through what that means to do that night in and night out. And I would like to think as we continue to grow throughout this year and then obviously getting into next year, that's something that we understand. It's just that effort thing has got to be consistent because in this league especially, I mean, that's the price of admission.
There are certain parts of the season where you could look at how things are playing out and a chance where guys could have hung their heads a little bit. We haven't seen that, of course. They've been playing hard.
Not at all.
How frustrating is it then when you win a game like last Wednesday beating Xavier? It was a fantastic win, and you want to kind of build upon that. But, they're still young and growing in how they think about things. And sometimes you beat a team like Xavier, like, okay, but come out and kind of roll the next team. And it's not that easy, but it's tough to get that message across, isn't it?
It is because what happens is, to our guys' credit, they felt really good after that win, and you should. But, The challenge when you're 18, 19, 20 years old is being able the next 2 days when everybody's doing that is, set that aside because, the point we tried to make to him last week is GW had Xavier on the ropes in Cincinnati the week before. And so,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And so that's how fine line this whole thing is. And that's the challenge is, letting, those things happen. You have to kind of treat winning and losing the same ultimately. And that's what the most mature teams do, is that they don't let winning and the emotional ride of winning blind them to what's next, nor do they let maybe the downside of losing blind them to what's next. And that is the thing I've been, proud of with these guys is that they haven't drooped and just, packed it in. They've continued to battle. And as crazy as I am, I've still been painting the fact that we still have great opportunity here in these next 7 games. And it's all about finishing strong, finish in February, finish strong. Whether you go undefeated or not is not so much the point. It's how you do it. And that's been the big mission this year is maybe we haven't won as many games as we like, but I think it's just how you win and how you go about things, in addition to off the court, developing a championship mentality as well. And we're still growing in that area.
Let's give the phone number again, 704-358-8768. That's the Alan Major Show here at Wild Wing Cafe off of Mallard Creek Church Road. If you're in the area, come on out, grab some dinner, and watch the show. And also, if you want to ask a question, we'll be happy to answer it here in the restaurant as well. Coach, you mentioned about opportunities going forward now, and college basketball in general this year. You look at all of the leagues, and outside of maybe the Big East that has so many teams that are just, top 20 teams, maybe 11 they say could be going to the NCAA tournament in the Big East. But you look at the rest of the leagues, even the Big Ten. You got Ohio State, pretty good, really good. But then after that, there's a drop off.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's not bad. But then you go to the Big 12. You got Texas and Kansas. After that, anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot of that. The A-10's kind of like that too. You've got Xavier, Temple, and even though Duquesne's 8-1, I haven't really. They haven't been there before to really make the statement that they're going to be here for real right now.
Yeah.
But you look at the rest, any given night, anybody can beat anybody. So as we go forward with the rest of 7 games, you never know what can happen.
Right. And at times what can happen is some of those teams that you mentioned in those leagues, they know they got their at-large bid. They're in great shape. They're playing for seeds right now. And so it's not about, whether they'll get in or not, Wisconsin or if you're a top 25 team at this point, unless barring a brutal disaster, you're pretty much in the tournament from an at-large standpoint. But so now what can happen is once those teams maybe know, especially you get down the stretch, they know that they're in, there's really not a carrot out there for them. And that's why they go nuts when they have to play in a conference tournament because, they say, hey, we've done our job. We played the regular season. We got our at-large deal. We got to go play 3 more games in 4 days or whatever it is. So that's what happens in some of those bigger leagues. So you can sometimes catch people dropping off a bit if they know they're in because, the incentive isn't there, and that's when they can maybe drop their dukes. Well, obviously we're not in that situation. Our dukes need to continue to stay up and maybe get up a little higher than they are. But that's the challenge for us, in addition to maybe having a chance to be a spoiler. But more importantly, it's like let's max ourselves out in this stretch run because we've shown flashes of what we're capable of now. Let's have the basketball maturity just to repeat that day in and day out.
Going to Rhode Island for the game on Saturday, and here's a team that just beat Dayton a couple of days ago, and that's just one team, Dayton, that I just can't figure out right now. Got Chris Wright. They've got some talent.
Yep.
Of course, won the NIT last season. And just so up and down. They can beat anybody, and then they can go anywhere and lose. And even this year, they're losing at home on occasion, and that never happens.
Yeah. And last night was convincing. I mean, they were up by 7 at halftime. And Rhode Island comes out. Rhode Island's explosive. I mean, they can get going. They'll pick you up full court and try to change the tempo of the game and speed things up. Outscored Dayton 45-24 in the second half. So they've shown the ability. They did it to Fordham, a week before that. Fordham's up 3 at halftime, and they come out and go plus 21, I think, in the second half of that game. So it just goes to show you, though. I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Any given night, anybody is capable of getting anybody. Duquesne going down the other day. people thought, hey, these guys may run through, the whole thing. Didn't seem touchable there for a while, especially with their margin of victories, scoring-wise, that they've had. So anything can happen, and that's both the beauty of this league, and also that's the that's the double-edged sword too. You better, you can go get somebody, but then you better watch your back.
And you gotta figure, St. Joe's won again the other day, and even Fordham has not won yet. If you're not careful, they played pretty well the other night and lost their game. But they played. You never know. You get a 5-minute period late in the game, you get hot. They might take somebody out too.
No, they've got their guard play. I mean, those guys, they'll launch shots, and they went cold against. Speaking of Rhode Island, Fordham's guys went cold in that second half, but they've got their 3 guards are capable of getting going. They
gave Temple like a handle in a game just a couple of days ago. In fact, last night. Phone number 704-358-8768. Emails for next week, major49ershow@yahoo.com. The email segment questions are brought to us by 49erfanatics.com. Well, Coach, our first question today comes from Mark King. And he said, did you expect Ohio State to be this strong when you were involved in the coaching search for the 49ers? And if so, since you were involved in the recruitment of these guys, did it tug at you a little bit, your heartstrings, to leave Ohio State?
No, I'm not surprised they're that good. It's funny. Evan Turner was right around, 20 points a game. They basically replaced it, with Jared Sullinger. It's one thing to replace the points. It's a whole other thing altogether how you replace them. And last year we didn't really have a low post presence, to throw the ball to. And now Jared has kind of done that. So it didn't surprise me at all that they've been that good. I text with Coach Mata about every other week, and I'm pumping my fist for him. I couldn't be more excited. They actually give me an excuse to stick around Houston at the Final Four, to watch those guys. So I got a feeling they're the team to beat. I think, they're going to Wisconsin this weekend. Haven't ever won there, so that'll be a carrot, for those guys this week to go do that. But every place, when you make a change and when you leave, it's kind of like you kind of accept it for what it is, but then as quick as that happens, you get excited about the new opportunity. And I would say I've been more excited, infinitely way more excited about this opportunity at Charlotte as opposed to looking back over my shoulder or anything like that. I think if there's any heartstrings at all, it's more happiness for them that they're on this run.
When you look at it and go into a Final Four, and you've been to a Final Four, it's great to win the national championship, win the whole darn thing. But I think for some programs, and maybe the first time as a coach you get there, because you guys did great things at Xavier, then went to Ohio State and certainly got even further. But when you first win that game to get to the Final Four, I'm imagining that feeling's got to be almost as special as if you won the whole thing.
It's humbling. I think when it really hit me, how humbling it really was, and all the guys who've been Hall of Fame level coaches that may have never gotten there. I mean, Gene Cady being one of them that I know myself. Coached for 25 years at Purdue, and unbelievable experience, but had never had a chance to play in a Final Four. And when you go out on that Friday, when they have all 4 teams practice, and I think we were 3rd that day. And it was in the Georgia Dome, and you go out, and it's just practice, but there's 60,000 people in there to watch practice. And to me, that's when it kind of hit me in the face of, like, there's been a lot of guys in this profession for a long, long time, probably way longer than I'll be in it, that never had this opportunity. And that was the humbling part about it. And every week, when there's fewer and fewer teams playing, those bus rides get more special.
Yeah.
Those dinners get more special. The time with the guys get more special. The film sessions, the jokes that get cracked on each other, all that stuff. It just gets more and more special with every week. And all of a sudden, there's just 4 teams playing. So it was probably the biggest thing to me. It was just humbling.
We're up against a break, but I have a question I want to ask you about that when we come back in a moment. Again, our phone number 704-358-8768, and we'll have more questions for Coach as well via email from the 49erfanatics.com broadcast center inside Wild Wing Cafe. This is the Alan Major Show from Signature Sports Group. Welcome back to the Alan Major Show here at Wild Wing Cafe with Coach Major. I'm Matt Swarad. Glad to have you along tonight here on WBCN, America's Talk, 1660 AM. Our next game broadcast is coming up from Kingston, Rhode Island, this coming Saturday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Our Bojangles pregame show starts at 1:30 here on 1660 as the Niners take on the University of Rhode Island at 2 p.m. Niners are back home next Wednesday, and they'll take on the Dayton Flyers. For tickets, call 704-687-4949. Well, Coach, before we get to the Bojangles Bowtime top performance this past weekend, it's kind of a follow-up question I want to ask you from what we were talking about a moment ago. And what's the one thing, if you think about it, that you enjoy most about this game, maybe on game day? There's one thing that I know that if I wasn't doing it anymore, that I would probably miss. But say you weren't doing this anymore, what is the one thing game day-wise you'd miss the most?
Wow. Game day. I would just say just that few minutes right before tip-off when, it's kind of like everything you've done, everything you've prepped, everything. It's just the anticipation and the excitement of, like, let's just see what we're going to do, the more you're around the team and the more experienced the team is, you start to really know, what you're going to get. We've had a little bit of maybe not knowing what we're going to get at times this year, but at the same time, I just love that approach, just seeing the guys, starting lineups and even here now, just walking out and seeing the Niner Nation, and the students right there. I mean, everybody's been looking forward to this few minutes right before that ball gets tossed up, and it's just a bunch of things all in one. It's really hard to describe.
I think it's interesting because you talked about, coaches that never got to the Final Four, that worked their whole life and had great careers but never got to really experience what it was like, the ultimate prize going to the Final Four. Mm-hmm. And there are things that we experience every day that maybe we take for granted, but that anybody out here would think, wow, that's the coolest thing in the world. Yeah. And there are things that if we weren't able to do it anymore, that we would miss eventually. Yeah. And that's certainly that's a good point.
Yeah, and I would miss the guys. I mean, if it wasn't game day, I would just miss the day-to-day with the guys. I mean, when to me, without kids and a family, I mean, this is the closest I've been to fatherhood. So, I may be drawn to them even more so than Coach Oliver or Coach Odom or Orlando because, they have wives, they have kids, and all that. But these are like my adopted sons in a sense. And so just day to day, just seeing them going into the practice gym, guys coming by the office, plopping their book bags just down just to talk once in a while. I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, just the day to day. Because honestly, that's what the whole thing's about is the players. So it doesn't work without them, obviously.
For me, I'm not certainly in that inside circle, but being around you all and what I've been able to do over the years, especially the arenas when the bus is able to go inside the arena, you're not coming from the outside. The moment you step off and you're in the underbelly of the arena and people have been working inside the building, the popcorn's popping, the hot dogs have been cooking, you can smell it. Yep. And you can see the anticipation of a big game coming up. And as you walk through the tunnel into the building, the lights hit you, and the idea that something special could happen that night, and knowing that no one else can see this. We're the only people in the building. That, to me, is what I would probably miss most.
Yeah, no, we're the lucky ones. We really are. I mean, I've dreamed about coaching since I was 13 years old. That's when it kind of first entered my mind that if I, was ever done playing, that's what I would want to do. And to actually get to do it and get to do it at a place like this, as my first head coaching opportunity, I pinch myself 2-3 times every week. So, we're the lucky ones to be able to kind of maybe, be in certain situations that most people aren't.
704-358-8768 the phone number. Coach, the Bojangles Bowtime top performance from the George Washington game. Let's talk about Anwan Wilderness for a moment, the senior from Dunwoody, Georgia. It was his first career double-double, and he really played well.
He was great, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we had kind of illustrated to them how much time that this team has left. How every team kind of has its own shelf life, and we kind of given it to them in the form of games, practices, and days. And I think it probably hits a senior a little bit more than it does a junior, sophomore, or freshman. Those guys think you're going to be here forever. You never graduate, type of thing. But, for Anwan and Dewhurst in particular, we really tried to hone in on those two guys and say, hey, let's rally around these two guys here down the stretch. They've been through so much. Anwan's been here. Dewhurst has had multiple surgeries and injuries and everything, and so for him to go out and play, I think he really smells this stretch run coming, and he wants to make the most out of it.
It really is such a short period of time, and it is hard to, until maybe they are a senior, they're coming down to their final game, so they really haven't hit them.
Right.
I was thinking the other day, talking about Anwan and the great game that he had, and it was his first, I believe, double-figure rebounding game since his freshman season when he had a great game at Rhode Island, had a 21-point game against Wake Forest, and we saw all the possibilities. Then he had some injuries, and things just didn't probably play out the way he thought it might, too.
Yeah.
And to see him play as well now as he's starting to play again as a senior was kind of neat to have happen. But I was thinking about, say he plays here 4 years. They play 30 games a year. In 4 years, it's 120 games. It goes by fast. In the summertime when I'm working a baseball season, that's 144 games. So I have more games in the summertime with baseball than he had in his entire 4-year career. That's how fast it goes by.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, and an NBA guy has that many games in a season and a half, or season and a quarter. Boston Celtics, when they won it a few years back, played 117 games.
A lot of games.
An NBA championship game was their 117th game of the season, which is that's a college career in a season. So, it's amazing. But, it's hard to illustrate to college guys how fast this goes. And we had Donnie Kuntz, who's a former player. He came back, and we've been trying to bring the former players back. And he spent some time with the guys yesterday after practice just talking about being a teammate and how much he misses it and how much he enjoyed the time. He was with Coach Rose and Coach Pratt, combined. And, but just talking about how this thing, it does not last forever and how fast it goes. So you just hope that our guys appreciate that, and looking at our seniors that, hey, let's rally around these two down the stretch.
Rhode Island coming up this weekend, again, 2 o'clock on Saturday, and URI right now with a conference record of 6-4, overall record 15-9, and I'm not sure if this has actually been released or not, but I was talking to somebody actually in Rhode Island today. And they were excited because I guess Coach Barron is getting his son, Billy, to leave Virginia and go up there and play and take over the Barron name, playing basketball up there. Jimmy had a great 4-year career. And Billy elected, after initially committing to URI, saying, no, I'm going to go to Virginia. When Coach Bennett went over to Virginia, a lot of folks up there were surprised. Now he's going to go home. That's a lot to live up to because Jimmy was such a great player.
Yeah, exactly. And I believe he either is going to get, or maybe it's already been announced that he's going to get a 3-year extension. So, obviously that sometimes could figure into it too. If son knows, hey, Dad's going to be around for a while. So, but yeah, and he's a classic coach's son. He's a gym rat. He's probably sleeps with the basketball and walks around with it. But yeah, that's and he's done a great job there. I mean, I don't know how many years this is for him. He's got to be close to double figures.
Yeah, he's getting there.
If it's not quite 10, I would say it's close because Desmond was actually, Oliver was with him up there when I was at Xavier. So that was back in 03, 04 in that stretch. So it's got to be pushing 10 years. But anytime you can be double figures at a place like that, or anywhere anymore in this day and age, it just goes to show you, number one, phenomenal coaching job. Number two, tremendous loyalty. Because I'm sure he's had opportunities too. It's probably passed on him.
Phone number 704-358-8768. It's the Alan Major Show here from Wild Wing Cafe from Signature Sports Group, and we're coming to you from the 49erfanatics.com broadcast booth. Coach, looking at the Time Warner Cable bundle package stat stuffer, let's look at Rhode Island a little bit and take maybe a break away from the Niners and look at what URI does and does well. They can shoot the three. They're pretty athletic.
Yeah.
They rebounded the ball awfully well against Dayton the other night. What is one thing about Rhode Island when you look at their stats that kind of scares you?
I would say number one, obviously it's two things. Delroy James in himself is such a unique guy. If you look at all the A-10 teams, I really don't know if there's a guy like him because he has the ability to do so many things. And so he is unique in his own way because he poses matchup problems. So that's one thing. The second thing is their ability to shoot the ball. They can go on some really scary runs. I mean, I think they had a 21 maybe a 20, almost a 30-to-something run last night in the second half. So they've got the ability to shoot the three. I think they average around 7 makes a game, 22 attempts. So if you're shooting that many, it's one thing. We don't want them getting that many off. So because if they get it off, it's a chance they'll hit it. But I'd say a combination of James and their perimeter shooting, it's kind of a two-pronged attack.
Now, you mentioned Desmond. He was with Coach Barron at St. Bonaventure. Mm-hmm. You, of course, have coached against him when you were at Xavier. Now again here, as you've looked at film and you've kind of broken down URI, have you seen any changes the way Coach Barron is coaching? Has he made any different moves in his philosophy, or is it kind of the same guy that was coaching back at St. Bonaventure?
Yeah, very very similar, and that's the beauty of Coach Barron. He's like a throwback. He's an old school guy, Brooklyn guy. He just kind of is who he is. He doesn't. I spent a little bit of time with him at the conference coaches meetings. And he's like the guy next door that would lean over your fence and talk to you for 2 hours, So not a whole lot of changes. I mean, they still pick up full court and they press, and they've always been physical. This team is probably a little bit more offensive talented than some of the teams that I remember him having. Back then, he had some physical guys, and they would bang and they would beat you up. And this team is maybe not quite that, but on the flip side of it, they're offensively, they can get going, and they've shown some flashes of being able to get going. So we don't want those guys to feel good at all, and that's the whole key for 40 minutes is to make them earn everything they get.
Let's go back to one of the email questions. This one comes from Rick Rutledge, coach, and kind of favorite memory topic again. The favorite memory as a coach, it could be Ohio State or Charlotte, but not Xavier. He doesn't like Xavier. He said we whipped him.
Ohio State, probably the two things. The Final Four one's hard to beat, but our second year there, we were picked, tied for 8th in the Big Ten, and ended up winning it outright. Just kind of came out of nowhere, and that was a special team because it was the team that couldn't go to the tournament the year before due to some sanctions. And a lot of those guys came back. They were seniors, and that team just grinded it, from the time the season ended to spring. They had an unbelievable summer, and they came back, and it was just such a fun team to coach because it was a purity to it. They weren't expected to do it. The Final Four team was picked, picked to win the Big Ten, picked to win the Big Ten tournament, picked to be a number 1 seed, picked to go to the Final Four, and luckily, ended up doing all those, but it's harder when you're supposed to do it. And,
with a target on your back like that, I'm thinking there's probably less enjoyment because you feel the pressure of having to validate what other people think you should be.
Right, exactly. But to take that one step further, obviously being here, in a brief period of time, the Tennessee game, it would be probably one of the most special nights of my life. And we had obviously, had a little adversity that week, with Shamari's, the departure with that. And, I've wanted it so bad for these guys because we've literally had so many different roster changes, injuries. It almost felt like we're coaching a different team every week in a sense. And not to make excuses at all, but I've wanted it so bad for them because maybe in some ways, when you're depleted, you're not supposed to. And so that win was special because a top 10 team coming in, and obviously odds were stacked against us, and to see the guys compete the way they did that night, that was special.
Well, this next question deals with a player you'll have in uniform next year, and it comes from Porter House. He said, Coach, have you had a chance to watch Terrence Williams play since he signed with the 49ers? His team is starting to play well, 8 or 9 straight wins, and he seems to be playing pretty well, but not scoring as much as he had in the past. He's a long athlete. Do you think he'll be a solid defender as well as a scorer?
I do, yeah. Terrence came to our game Saturday, and talking to his high school coach, the thing he has been doing is the last 5 or 6 games he's averaged double-figure rebounds. And, I haven't had a chance to see him recently. I saw him back in before the new year. But, I hear he's been diving on loose balls and just making all those little hustle plays and winning plays that you want your seniors to make. And so he's kind of stepped away from maybe just that label of scorer, and he's doing a lot of other things now. I know for a 3-game stretch, he averaged about 13, 14 rebounds a game recently. So I saw him Saturday. I'm like, hey, you shouldn't have shown me we can do that. Now you better come in doing all these other things too. But I think he's got a chance to really be something. He's going to go through his pains, in adjustment as a freshman, like all freshmen do. But he's 6'4" at least, almost 6'5". Really long arms. Those two things right there, can be a formula for a good defender. And we'll demand that he do it. He's going to come in knowing that that's part of our culture. But I think he's got a chance to really be good.
Next question, Coach, is from Ray Martin. He says, as a first-year coach, what is the one thing you've learned of the job that has given you the most satisfaction? And what is the most difficult thing to date, whether it be player decisions, travel, getting adjusted as a head coach, or a combo of all of them that may be factored in there as well?
Well, the first question was what's the best thing?
The thing you've learned on the job.
I think, wow, that's a long list. I've learned a lot. The biggest thing is that, your mind has to go global. You just, how can I every day try to find a way to help everybody get better? Because that's ultimately my job is everybody that's around me, coaches, assistant coaches, Libby, our secretary, managers, players. I have to really do my best to make everybody better and help them get better. And so that's been the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's been humbling because I have to continue to get better myself. And the people around me are only going to grow as much as I do. And that's been a humbling thing that as I get into this off season, I'm going to be I'm going to be soaking up everything in sight because all I'm going to do is turn around and take my development and give it back to the people that I'm around. And then probably the most difficult thing, it's a combination of all those things that he mentioned. But the biggest thing is just really trying to get guys, at their age range, 18 to 22, to just develop maybe that sense of urgency that's necessary to be successful at a high level. And that it's not that kids don't want to, absorb it. They don't know. And they don't know that they don't know, for lack of a better phrase. So just getting them to understand, hey, it is important, to do these things at a certain level every day, whether it be your academic stuff, your relationships with your teachers, being in the weight room, just you want to do everything at a high level, and that's how you max out because this thing goes fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're gone.
Right.
And so you never want to look back and say, I wish I could have done more. But that's a hard message to send because they think they're going to be here forever. But that's the biggest thing is just trying to get them to understand, hey, every day matters. Every day is so, so crucially important.
Well, we're going to take our next break now. Before we do, we got the TIAA Craft Student Athlete Spotlight feature coming up. Also, this segment's been brought to us by Time Warner Cable, the new bundled package with TV, internet, and phone. Call 1-800-TW-CABLE today to find out more. Our special player guest today is Javaris Barnett. Speaking of JB, Javaris Barnett's going to be here. We'll talk to him in just a few moments. This is the Allen Major Show from Signature Sports Group. Welcome back to the Allen Major Show here at Wild Wing Cafe out by the university. Alongside Coach Major, I'm Matt Smorat. Our special guest today is Javaris Barnett, a junior from here in Charlotte. And this segment's brought to us by Ortho Carolina. Ortho Carolina, you improved. Well, JB, good to see you as always. Hope you're doing well.
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Boy, the second half of the season has been fantastic for you. Kind of a breakthrough. I know how you've been working so hard for so long to get this opportunity, and now getting a chance to be a starter in the starting rotation, log a lot of minutes, almost 28 a game. What's it been like for you?
It's been good. I just needed the opportunity. Coach Major gave it to me, and the hard work, it pays off for everything. So I'm having fun. We're on a little losing streak or whatever, but I think down the stretch we can make some things happen. We've been working hard and just trying to get my teammates, to buy in and just play as hard as we can, and we can do something down the stretch.
Well, we certainly know that you always had the individual confidence to compete at this level. Mm-hmm. But Coach has also told us about the extra time in the summer that you put in to make the effort in the weight room, on the floor, taking extra shots, coming out here and really putting a lot of effort in. And it's paying off. Mm-hmm. Talk about your decision to do that. That was certainly something you kind of you talked to the coaching staff, but you did a lot of it on your own.
Yeah. Well, as some like coach knows and some of the team knows, my favorite player in the NBA is Kobe Bryant. So watching him, I've been watching YouTube clips of him and how hard he goes, and that's just motivation for me to try to be the best player as I can. Anytime. I'll be in the gym Sundays, late nights, early mornings, just getting up shots, just working on my game, trying to be the best player I can, because I love the game. It's fun, so why not do it?
You know, scoring is great, but it's the other things that you got to do to keep yourself on the floor when you're not scoring. And you, even before the points started coming for you this year, rebounding was big for you. You were averaging about 5 a game before the points started to come. A lot of that, you know, the work in the weight room to get stronger. When did you feel like you were at the point that you could compete with the big guys in the paint?
Well, when I redshirted my year, I gained, 30 pounds.
Yeah, and you grew a lot, too. I mean, when you came here as a freshman, you didn't look like that.
My redshirt year, I've probably worked out every day, like 5 days a week in the weight room. So with that being said, I added just muscle, but our strength and conditioning coach, Ryan Atchison, he got me more agile, like lost the weight and became more lean. So I think that helped me. I still got the strength, but that still helped me move quicker. And with the rebounding, that's just effort, basically. I don't know how to work on that. That's just
Well, there was one that you didn't get that I know you were going to get, but you got pushed out of bounds at St. Bonaventure. That would have got us that way. He had the baseline. He had the left block. You were all set, and you got pushed out of bounds. Coach, you know, he got called for a foul, and this one I'm going to talk about, but I think you were probably happy because the effort that he showed. I don't know if it was Xavier or if it was GW on Saturday, but that rebound he got in the first half where he just pulled it away. I think it was Xavier. He pulled it away from somebody and got called for a foul, but it was just the strength that you talk about and the will and the toughness to go get every ball. That I saw after the foul was called, you were very happy with that play, the way you went after the ball.
Yeah, that was one. And then, Xavier game was a huge play he made. Braz had kind of gotten a little bumped, and, the ball went up into the air, and he actually just kind of went and snatched it out of the air and laid it in, which was a big one in the second half.
Exactly,
so, I want to just stress again, like, JB just said, I gave him the opportunity. I really want to emphasize he took the opportunity. And it all started last summer. I've said it many times. I mean, us coming in the office on weekends, and he's walking out of the building on the way to his car, got the ball tucked under his arm. And he took the opportunity to play the way he's playing right now. But all that started, it's a great message to kids. I mean, if you want to, put time in and treat the game the right way, and the game rewards you. And that's why he's played the way he's played. But he did it. It wasn't as if because we didn't know how things were going to play out when we got here, But it's a great testament to him because he did it without knowing what was going to happen. I mean, had he known he was going to be a starter, then it's easy to be motivated all summer. But he didn't know. We didn't know how it was going to work out. That's all the more reason why it's a huge tribute to this kid right here.
And sticking it out, too. I mean, there are a lot of people in your position that maybe would have said, you know what, I've been here 3 years, I redshirted, I'm still not playing. Maybe I want to go someplace else for a couple years and play. Was there ever a thought in your mind that, maybe it wasn't going to happen for me here and I love it here, but maybe I want to go play someplace else?
Oh, yeah. In the back of my mind, yeah, that was a thought. But I'm not a quitter, so I was never going to leave Charlotte no matter what was going to happen. I think it's my hometown, it's my home city, and I think
Mom's home cooking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to some of that tomorrow night up there in Rhode Island.
I haven't got a plate yet. I've been here 9 months. I mean, what's going on here?
I mean, Sundays that's the best. I don't get that many home cooked meals either. But
does she let you take your laundry home?
Sometimes. Yeah, she's actually, they're happy that I'm out. I'm the youngest of 3, so they.
Yeah, you're on the do-it-yourself deal right now.
Yeah, basically. I'm a grown man now.
Yep.
from time to time we like to see you, but after a while, you know. Yeah.
Well, a great student as well, over 1,400 on your SAT. You know, when basketball's all done, whether it be here, whether it be overseas, whether it be who knows what's going to happen next year. We've seen guys blossom in 2 years and have great careers and in the professional ranks. Who knows what's going to happen for you? Hopefully great things. You know, outside of basketball, and that's all said and done, what do you want to do?
I'm a criminal justice major, so I'm thinking maybe the CIA or maybe a detective. Like, I like watching the CSI Miami shows and the Law and Order shows, so that's something that interests me, but that's all I can think of right now.
Is there a favorite class you have right now?
I only got one class, so one in class and a Monday night class. All my other classes are online. But I'm taking a tobacco class. I guess that's probably my favorite. We just visited the Duke Mansion Monday, and that was a sight to see. I've never been there, and it's
impressive place.
Boy, times have changed. I mean, we had to go to class. Now we got online
classes.
classes.
No, these guys, I mean, they're taking class in their pajamas. You know, I mean, like, what's going on here? You know, we had to trudge through 5 feet of snow, and, you know, all that stuff. But
fortunate.
Yeah.
Finally, how about a great moment you've had so far this season, whether it be personal or team-wise? Coach mentioned the Tennessee win, but what has been something that stood out so far for you this year?
The Tennessee win that's a big one, and the Georgia Tech win. I think that's a big one as well. A three overtime win, and just them two. And I wanted to say St. Bonaventure because that was probably my best game, but we all know what happened. We don't want to revisit that, so we're going to stick with Tennessee and Xavier. Xavier, that was a huge win. We owed them. They last year, you know, came in to our house, and we know what happened. But them three are probably the biggest wins of the season.
Well, JP, thanks so much for coming by tonight, and best of luck this weekend at Rhode Island. Have a great rest of the season, and we're going to talk to you again down the road.
Yes, sir.
Javaris Barnett's been our guest, brought to us by Ortho Carolina. A lot more to come on the Allen Major Show after timeout. Our phone number is 704-358-8768. And from Wild Wing Cafe, the 49erfanatics.com broadcast center, this is the Allen Major Show from Signature Sports Group. Welcome back. Final segment here at the Allen Major Show at Wild Wing Cafe with Coach Major. I'm Matt Swarat. Our phone number is 704-358-8768. We can maybe squeeze a call or two in if you want to give us a phone call, ask a question about how the season has gone so far, maybe what's coming up for the 49ers, which this weekend it's at Rhode Island, Saturday at 2 o'clock, massive viewing party right here at Wild Wing Cafe. And if you haven't been to one, they've been a lot of fun, I've heard. Of course, I'm always with the team, so I've not been able to attend. But a lot of folks have come out here at Wild Wings and really enjoyed those massive viewing parties. 2 o'clock this Saturday. And if you can't make it out, listen to us on the radio, 1660 at 1:30 with our pregame show brought to you by Bojangles. And just a reminder, the game against Dayton next Wednesday, it is at 7 p.m., not 7:30. So if you're making your plans to come out to Halton Arena for the Dayton game, it'll be 7 o'clock next Wednesday against the Dayton Flyers. For tickets, call 704-687-4949. Well, Coach, we do have a few minutes before the show is over. Looking at Rhode Island and how their season has gone so far, they're 15-9, but they're very good at the Ryan Center, as most teams are at home. They're 9-2 in that building, and they've won their last two home games. Fordham beat them by 20, and of course Dayton this past yesterday, winning 67-53 in that ball game. So they've protected their home floor well. Common opponent out of the league was Davidson. They beat Davidson there rather handily, 271-58. It's a loud building. The crowds aren't always the greatest in that building, but now the students are back. Their students come back late from the Christmas break, middle of January. They had a pretty good crowd against Dayton, over 5,500. When they're out there, it's loud. It is a tough place to play.
It is, yeah. No, I remember, just being back at Xavier, going up there, and they put their students kind of, in the vicinity of the visitors' bench, so they're right on top of you. And, it's a it's a bit of a journey to get there in terms of a trip. So it's one of those just, you got to be mentally tough on every road trip. But, getting there isn't quite a skip across the pond. It's a planes, trains, and automobiles, type of a trip. So, but for us, it's a great opportunity. I mean, they're very good at home. But we've had some time to kind of, get into ourselves a little bit this week. And I think the big thing, again, is, those two things we talked about earlier, doing a great job on James and making sure we contain their three-point shooting.
You look at how their season has played out. Just two games really jump off the page of games that they were never in the game. There were back-to-back losses at Florida on the 3rd of January. Then home against Xavier, their first conference game. They got beat 72-45, which is surprising because it was at the Ryan Center. But the students certainly weren't there, so I'm sure it wasn't a great crowd.
Right.
But that is such a lopsided score. What did Xavier do in that game to beat them that bad?
It was just a consistent effort. It wasn't anything maybe defensively earth-shattering, or they didn't pull out some trick defense that threw Rhode Island off. They did a great job of just, limiting them to one shot. Did a good job on James and his penetration. And I think part of that, too, when you don't maybe have the energy that you like in the building to get you going, may have been part of it that day. And it was a Christmas break, deal, and it was a ESPN game. So, you throw that in there as well, and maybe you don't have your ESPN atmosphere maybe for that. So, but it was just a consistent effort would probably be the biggest credit I could give to Xavier, is that, it wasn't a 27-point game for the whole game, but they just kind of played their way into that just by being consistent, and they kind of took, Rhode Island's confidence away over the course of the game.
Rebounding, negative numbers in terms of margin, almost -3 per game. Is that just not one of their strengths, or has it been just basically who they've been playing, the matchups in that regard?
Combination of the two. The kid Martell is a big body, but they'll play, James, more of as a face-up power forward, although he will post up, but they maybe don't throw at you a multitude of big guys. So that's part of it. But at the same time, their strength is that they're very skilled. And, between James driving the ball and their three-point shooting. So, what they maybe lack for in rebounding, if you give up an offensive rebound, their thing is, hey, we could go down and knock in a three, and we're still +1 on the last two possessions. So, you just got to be careful. But hopefully that's something that we can exploit, as well as the game wears on. But the big thing is just competing at a high level for the entire 40 minutes. That's something that ultimately that's what we want Charlotte basketball to be, not because it's, Xavier or Georgia Tech or Tennessee, but that's who we are every day.
Another show's in the books, Coach. Good luck on Saturday. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and just again an apology to all the fans out there. We wasn't able to make it out after the GW game. We were just kind of talking in there as a team after that one, and just really reminding the guys to make sure that we always give the effort that especially the alums deserve, the guys that come back for homecoming. And we just felt bad about that. So apologize to you as well, not getting back out for the radio. But once again, to everybody who's hung in there with us, can't thank you enough. The Niner Nation's the best.
Sounds great. Coach, thanks.
Thanks. We'll see you.
That's going to wrap it up for us. The Allen Major Show brought to you in part by Masson, home of college basketball and college basketball Masson. This game is true. Again, viewing party for Masson, 2 o'clock Saturday right here at Wild Wing Cafe. For Darryl McCray and Travis Hancock and Coach Major, I'm Matt Swarat. Thanks so much for listening tonight and tuning in from the 49erfanatics.com broadcast booth inside of Wild Wing Cafe. So long, everybody.